Hey beautiful family, you may have noticed that I'm not having as much time to make my content here, and I don't like that. I don't like that. I see value not only in helping the children and the dogs here, but I receive a lot of messages from people saying they've received some peace all around the world from speaking from that space of the light of silence, as I have come to label it, the present moment awareness. And I was here with my friend the other day, and she's a devoted Christian, very loving, miraculous human being. And she was asking me where I am with my walk with God, and I said, the overbearing feeling that I am getting at the moment is no labels. And she said, that sounds like a wonderful place to be. Because it's true, it's how I have fallen into this consciousness at the moment, is the words, the symbols, the language to define that state of consciousness it's undefinable. It's a truth that can only be experienced, and trying to use words to describe that truth is tough. And so the overwhelming feeling I keep getting is no labels, because every time I go to add a label, it conjures imagery and symbology from inside different minds. And so I keep, in my own mind as well, I try to box this state of consciousness, as I have done over the previous years, and I try to box it with a religious term or a spiritual term or a self-imposed identity. And it just feels like it strangles the experience of the vastness of the consciousness that we are at this present time for myself. And so at present it's no labels, but the longer I spend moving in this consciousness where I don't want to add a label, I think in my energy as a person there's debris, shall we call it, from the issues I've faced with pride and with arrogance. And these are things that I've had issues with over the last years, and it's been there to see on my YouTube. And I feel like so long as I keep moving, and if I can define it in any way with symbols, I can say, as a human body who used to have a mental identity of an Englishman, of a founder of a charity, of this, and not only a mental identity, but something I'd clung to and made the image of inside my brain, and created this mind identity. That I'm rather just a human now that's allowing the same force that blows the wind and sets the sun and beats my heart to have its say in the actions of the intellect of my body. And the more I stay there, the more right it feels. And every time I try to add a label, I see the risk of building a mental image inside my brain of who I am, and that mental image pulling up the debris of the issues that I faced before, forming an ego and the pride that will come from it, etc. And so by having no mental identity to the best of my capacity, by having no labels, by rejecting adding labels onto the experience of the consciousness I'm feeling, by rejecting labels and accepting, if we can call it this, that it's a surrender to the mystery of life, and knowing I'll never control it because it is a mystery. And only by adding the mental identity and rejecting that notion do we start to control it. And so staying in that surrendered to the mystery state and having no label, even surrender is a human concept, just an allowance, as a baby has an allowance of the fact that it's existing and hasn't built any concepts inside of itself. It's just in that wow moment of life. No separation, no determination of self and other, no anticipation, no desires, just passing through and responding to the feedback from any given moment, tired, hungry, etc. As I stay within there, and I keep wanting to add and build a structure. I said this to my friend, I want to build a structure. I'd love to grab at the religious symbologies that I have, or the spiritual symbologies, and build a structure for this state of consciousness. But every time I do it, I feel that state diminishing, and so I feel less present. And so I realized that building the structure is going to be building and defining an ego, and that is going to open me up to the risk of pride. Because if you build up any mental character, then obviously how the war begins with humility. If you have no labels for the experience of consciousness your human body is going through, you can't generate pride, because you've got nothing to be proud of. You are part of the expansive ongoing everything. And so I don't know how long this goes on. I don't know how long this is possible to continue. But no labels. No labels. Just now. Even just now is another concept of the human language. And the problem is it can only be experienced. Can't be explained. It's like looking at this. We have in modern science apparatus that can look at the brain of any of us and register the frequency as we use the symbols and language of our human species at this time. We have beta, alpha, theta, delta. We determine these are the 4 states of consciousness, the 4 different frequencies inside the human brain. But if you take a monk who's meditating and they're sitting there and the machine says they're in theta or delta, the experience of the monk right there and then has no symbols, language and labels. It's an experience of consciousness, a unity, a oneness, and a state where the vessel is empty and the will of unconditional love is felt. They're not experiencing the word delta or theta. They're experiencing consciousness, but the scientist is labeling and dissecting with words that this is theta, this is delta. And so there you have an example of the 2 different ways. You have all of us looking online, looking in books to try and discover the truth. And we hear about stillness, and we hear about this, and we agree to it. We say it sounds wonderful. But we're like the scientist looking at the apparatus. Instead of coming away and going on the journey ourselves of exploring what does theta state of consciousness look like, as the scientist would determine that brain frequency. And at some point we have to make that distinction in our spiritual journey. And so I'm nestled in the experience, and I don't wish to use the symbols to try and dissect it at the moment. And I feel it's a compulsion from spirit. Every time I go to add a label, it's like, no labels. It's not going to help you. And maybe that needs to last forever. I don't know. Maybe this is it. But no labels means no character. No character means no pride. No pride means no taking ownership for what was never yours. All I want to see is that which I've touched inside me be touched by everybody, because it's healing and it's glorious. And it's no longer like the scientists saying, okay, there is this frequency, This is what happens in spiritual and religious circles. There is this God. It's like, wouldn't you rather have the conscious experience of it? Wouldn't you rather have the conscious experience of that unconditional love instead of the agreement of the unconditional love? Instead of the scientist looking at the machine and saying, there's theatre, wouldn't you rather be in theatre? Instead of looking at the religion and saying, I agree to this unconditional love somewhere inside me, wouldn't you rather be experiencing that unconditional love through you? No labels. No labels, no character. Just presence. From that presence, a love without conditions, and a world with beauty beyond comprehension. I just wish this peace on everyone, if only for a moment. If you sit there saying, I want that, now what do I do? Examine that voice. That voice is probably belonging to a character, and that character is probably the reason you're not feeling it. And if you say, okay, I see that, now how do I get rid of that character? There goes the character trying to control it again. There goes the character thinking it has something to find, something to seek, something to do. And the character's the reason the separation has occurred. The character's the reason that we've placed conditions on love. God bless, guys. Bye.
And you'll be in a world of pure imagination. What you'll find when you look into your imagination.